Well, why don't we get right into it, obviously, because that sounds absolutely awesome. I'll do an introduction based on what
Mm-hmm.
I'll do it off the air, but we might as well just jump right into it. And I'll start
Mm-hmm.
by asking you where you are now and where you were, say, well, right now you're an author and a speaker, obviously, but that wasn't always the case, correct? What led you to where you are right now?
Oh, that's a beautiful question and a longer story.
Well, you can Reader's Digest it for us.
Yes. So it started when I was 25. I'm 69 now. And I was a young physician in the internship. And working in surgery in the night shift, the reception called and said, a motorbiker is coming in, severely injured. Be ready. And so we all gathered in the emergency room waiting for the motorbiker. But when he came in, unfortunately, he already had passed and we couldn't do anything for him. So I, as the youngest, had to look for his papers. And I found the ID and looked at it and saw he was born in the same year I was. And at that point, it hit me. I was actually going to die. Before that, it has always been a possibility, yes, but nothing serious to think about. But then it really struck me. And the first thought that came up was, and I don't really know who I am. And that thought kind of jump-started me on the whole search. And I didn't know where to go. I had never thought about this stuff. You know, I was busy studying and then I was busy working many nights during that time. And it was like, I never engaged in this. So I thought, all right, now maybe I need to meditate. I had heard about meditation somehow, but where? And so I told my husband, and one morning, it was a Saturday morning, I was coming home and he said, have a look into the newspaper. There is an advertisement for a Zen beginner course. And that's how it all started. And it never stopped.
I love hearing that. Absolutely love hearing that.
Yes. And then fast forward 40 years later, 2015, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Now, I had really done my very best during this 40 times, meditated hundreds, thousands of hours probably, and studied the Pali Canon in depth. I was in a circle where people spoke Pali and everything. And okay, I was diagnosed with breast cancer and I was so panicked. It was unbelievable. I was just totally gone. And I knew all this, you know, if you can't tell it what to do, like your thoughts, your feelings, your body, it's not yours.
Right.
That's what the Buddha says. Yeah, how true, but unfortunately it didn't feel like it. It felt like I might be dying.
Right. That's all nice and
I
practiced.
wasn't panicked. And I felt terrified. So, and then I thought, okay, this has to stop. If this has to stop, I'm not going to put up with it any longer. Whatever I've done, it didn't work. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in this state. And by the time I was a psychoanalyst, already, well, I was already retired, and nothing worked, no trick. And it was like, in that moment, I really turned my back on the search. I said, okay, that's it. I have to find now. And 2 weeks later, via a blog post on my newsfeed, I found a platform which deals with the very first step to awakening, and that put me on the path.
Fantastic, fantastic.
Yeah.
So did any of your meditations or did any of your insights during your meditations lead to that transformation, or was it kind of something outside of meditation?
It was totally outside of meditation. I did have several deep insights during the phases where I meditated intensely, and that always kept me going because I knew there was something else. It was not just the carrot hanging in front of me. I tasted it. I'd bitten into it.
Nice.
but still, I hadn't plucked it yet. So uh, what then happened, the platform is called Liberation Unleashed, and they guide through seeing that there is no me thinking or acting, deciding. And they have volunteer guides, and you have to report every day. You have a dialogue with them. And I thought I'm not sure I can write in every day because I'm going to have radiation. I don't know how I will take it. So I thought I'd download the book. They had a book, The Gateless Gate Crashers.
Love that.
And so I read this book. It was a few dialogues, just a book with dialogues. And I asked the questions myself, and they were genius questions. I never thought of such a brilliant question, like just looking at thoughts and asking, where do they come from? Where do they go to?
Right. Absolutely.
Is there a thinker? Do you know which thought will come next and can stop it if you don't like it?
All great questions.
Yes. So I had boiled it down to like that this I was like a virus, a computer virus that attaches itself to every file. Something is seen, I see. Something is heard, I hear. Fear is there, I'm afraid. And then on one page was the question, so is there a you in any physical form or shape? And I thought, what a silly question, of course not. And at that moment, a shift happened. And I saw absolutely clearly there is no me, never was. How silly that I ever believed that. And how stupid I never saw that. It's right in front of me. And that was the start. And now after that, 6 more steps were necessary to fully awaken in this Buddhist framework of the 10 fetters. But it was basically really the entry into this path. Now, I do think that my long meditation experience helped me a lot to focus, because I didn't drown in thoughts and they didn't take over any longer, which many people fight with. I'm guiding. I didn't get frustrated. You see, now I didn't have the time. It only took me like 4 days, I think.
Wow.
I didn't have the time to get frustrated, but many people get frustrated a lot. And hey, when you do Zen, you no longer get frustrated. You're just sitting there.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Nothing happening.
It's not even a thing.
No. And I think that helped me a lot, and to be very discerning in what I experienced, and grasping these concepts of really in the scene, only the scene. And that helped a lot, I think.
How do you integrate coming to the realization that there is no self and there is no you, with the fact that, well, just like all of us, you wake up, you say hello to friends, you have breakfast. Was there any time when you're in your day-to-day life, does that perception remain, or are you of the mindset that, okay, I understand that there is no me per se, but in this context of where I'm at right now, quote, where I'm at right now, I have to maintain some level of self. Is there any conflict for you in regards to that?
No. Well, where I am now, there is no identity whatsoever. No identity. I don't feel like a teacher or anything. I just feel totally normal, average. And nothing I could hang my hat on. And still everything works. It worked before because there was never anything. It was just an assumption like Santa exists. Now, when the child sees that actually there is no Santa, nothing really changes.
Right.
Santa isn't killed or abducted by a UFO or something like that.
How dark. But I totally get what you're saying. It's funny because I've had epiphanies like that in my meditations, and sometimes even outside of my meditations as well. In fact, I just had one yesterday. I was walking and I'm like, this isn't real per se. You know what I mean? Looking about and seeing, I'm like, that right now I'm here in a human form, obviously, but it's not the essence of me. There is no me. So I have that epiphany a lot as well. So I can totally understand what you're saying about going through your day-to-day life with the understanding that, okay, Tom Walters, podcaster, meditation teacher, it is a thing and it isn't a thing. So,
Right. No, for me, the sense doesn't come back. So there are two steps. One is seeing that there is no me, and the other thing is, the second is that this assumption can no longer be created. And in the shift, it gets so clear that this assumption cannot be created any longer. And it is even hard to remember. Even I remember that a few days afterwards, I couldn't remember how the world felt with the sense of me. It was totally lost, gone.
mhm. Was there any, and I think I know the answer, but I'll ask it anyway. Was there any fear or any trepidation with that realization?
With that one, not, but later.
Yes.
But, you know, like what you saw is totally true. That this all is, in a sense, not really there. It's empty. It's, everybody can access that with logic. We do not see a tree. The eye registers something that then is transformed into electrical impulses, and the retina gets transferred to the brain, into the seeing center, is then somehow decoded in a way, and then we see a tree. Our experience is totally insubstantial. There is no substance in it. It's just mind made. It truly is. And we have no idea. Now, a bee will experience the world totally differently. It will look totally differently. And we have no idea what is actually out there. We can't stick our head ever out of experience. But this is all totally empty of any substance. That's true. And at some point, that's just the normal. That's just how it always looks.
Would you say that the thoughts that you and I experience are, I wouldn't want to put a label as aberrant, but to hear us talk, we're talking obviously about the nature of thought, the nature of existence, and it seems very common to talk about there being nothingness,
Mhm.
that it's all mind created, so to speak. But how do you react, or how do people react with you, or how do you interact with people that are definitely of not that mindset? You know, obviously we come across, you know, tens of hundreds of people every day. Well, more like tens today, but um, right? Uh, hopefully not hundreds. But how do you interact with people that are of the mindset that, yeah, no, I'm Tom Walters. I'm a podcaster. I'm the son of Beverly and Bertram Walters. How do you interact with somebody, or is it even that conscious, when you're interacting with somebody whose full perception is that everything is real and identity is everything?
You know, um, this stuff, I cannot talk to muggles about this stuff. It's not possible. They don't get it.
Right,
It would be asked too much. It would be the same if I would talk to them in straight Mandarin and expect them to understand what I'm saying.
right.
Right. So I don't talk to people about it who are not interested in that. And it's very hard to understand. I have my best school friend, my oldest friend from school time still. And she once asked me, and she said, "So what are you really doing?" And so I started and explained the first step, which can still be grasped. And then she said, "Okay, and then?" And so I walked her through all the steps, and she really got it.
Oh, wow.
Then my partner said, "Oh, sometimes you do this and that, or you react this and that." And my friend looked at her and said, "No, this can't be true if it's true what Christiane just said." So she really got it, and that's so precious to me. It's the only muggle who ever got this I talked to.
Well, that's great. I mean, it's awesome when we have people that we can bounce things off of that understand that. Obviously,
Right.
I still, my mom was a great person to bounce things off of because she
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
Oh, it was and still is. I mean, she passed away about 3 years ago, but I'm still in contact with her via my meditations, and
Mm.
she still shares a lot of wisdom about everything, and to our point, nothing.
Yeah, and I think it should be made clear that it is not nothingness. Like what I see still looks like everybody would call a tree, and I call it tree too. And but it's I call it no attribute isness. It's just the color, and that already is a concept. It's just the scene and just the herd. It's not nothing. You don't dive into a dark nothingness where
Right,
nothing is there, nothing matters, you don't matter, the world, nothing. This is nihilistic, and this is not what happens.
right.
These phases can happen, but it's not the end result.
That is a good point to make because and maybe I misspoke because that does sound talk about dark. That does sound really dark. But
It is dark. It's really dark. I had a longer phase like that.
mm,
And my colleagues, fortunately, I found my friends online to whom I can talk about this. And they tried to pull me out of this. And like, Christiane, please feel, what are the sensations to this? And I said, I don't care. These sensations, they will come and go until I'm dead. And it just there's no point in anything.
well, I am thankful they pulled you out. but but it's so true because the mind is obviously amazing, and we not just our thoughts. I was talking about this on another episode of the podcast called actually an episode was about the nature of thought, and I was talking about that exact same thing, talking about a tree. I'm like, a tree isn't a thing. You were given the perception of a tree, the thought of a tree, what it's called, what it looks like. Uh, that thought was imprinted onto you or given to you. So we don't have any initial or original thought. But with your point that we were just talking about, that doesn't mean that everything is meaningless. It just means that you look at it. And for me, it's more about feeling the energy of things and not
Mhm.
really having to put a name to it, just simply existing. You made a great
Right,
point about
right.
the bee. I look at a bee, and what I see of a bee is not the same thing the bee sees of me,
Hmm.
and it's all fabricated, but with a purpose, with a grand
Right,
purpose and a beautiful purpose.
right. Well, but the purpose, I'm not sure, but this path I went is incredibly sobering. So everything that's added basically falls away. But um, it's really true. Uh, Helen Keller talked about this. You know, the woman who was born blind and got very sick and turned deaf
Oh,
and couldn't
absolutely.
speak consecutively. And when I think she was 6 or 7, when a caretaker started to dictate words into her hand. And she said, then the world fell apart for her in separated things. And she was separated. Before that, everything had been one.
That's an interesting perception because it's just all about that perception. Imagine being
Mm-hmm.
born blind and then going deaf.
Mm-hmm.
We create our reality by our senses. So not
Right,
having those
right.
um, makes it a different reality, so to speak. And
Mm-hmm.
when Annie Sullivan started teaching her about these things, I never even thought about that what was a shift in understanding or belief from, again, not nothingness, but to be honest, just a different perception to a whole new perception.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it worked for her because she went on to do some amazing things.
Yes,
So it didn't scare her as much as I think it might have, I don't know, given me a different spin on life if I was in that same situation.
certainly, certainly. I
No,
mean, I like it that in the Bible they say in the beginning was the word. It really is. We think that everything we have a word for uh, is instantly reified and is something that exists as a thing. It's amazing.
right.
Words are so powerful.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. As my mom would say, it's the energy behind the words that has even more power,
Mhm.
which is amazing. And it is interesting that you point out that um, shying away from, or maybe not shying away, but just saying, okay, I'm like, there's some people I can talk to about this and other people not so much. But with that said, I would imagine, like me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that a lack of understanding doesn't denigrate anybody in my mind. It's
No.
just a different perception, different reality. And it's just everybody's open to having their own reality.
Well, and I lived in that one for decades, so
Right.
I still kind of know the language.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And it's cool. And for me, talking about, I mean, we're talking very esoterically, but just from a day-to-day sense of peace, it's that understanding that my way of seeing the world is my way of seeing the world. It doesn't have to be embraced by everybody. It doesn't. I don't even matter if it's embraced by anyone. But for right now, how I
Right,
see the world is working for me,
right.
and I allow people to experience the world the way they do.
Mhm.
So how did your book come across? How did that start out?
Um,
At what
well,
point did
that
you say,
was a
"Oh,
very interesting experience. I started with the idea of writing a book 2 years ago when I was diagnosed with uterine cancer for a change. And it was quite an amazing experience because I had gone through the process already. And, when my gynecologist told me, I just waited for the fear to arise. For me, there is no other way of dealing with feelings than just feeling them. And so I thought, okay. And nothing arose. And I was quite, I didn't know what to say. I'm a slow shifter, so I can't change tracks easily. Like we were on the track, we were usually living a travel trail during summer. And we were just packing up. And I was on the track, okay, in 2 weeks we move into the travel trailer and this has to be done until then, and that was it. And then it was like, no. And so I had to change the track first. And then my gynecologist was so sweet and said, yeah, you could now ask why. And then I regained my speech and said, no, we won't go down there. We won't find anything anyway. So what do I have to do? And uh, it was, the whole process was so smooth in a way, though of course I had pain, that's normal, but in the end it felt like I didn't suffer a scratch, and
Mhm.
that was phenomenal. I thought, just for this it was totally worthwhile, all the fear I had during the process. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Well, it's interesting because I would imagine that on some level, we we have a human body, obviously, or the
obviously,
perception
yeah.
of the perception of a human body. But it was like you were talking about earlier. In theory, I mean, many times I've talked about what is pain. It's the body's way of letting us know something's amiss, but we don't have to buy into pain, meaning we don't have to feel the pain per se. Many times, I remember when I was even younger, um, my mom would say, like, if I stub my toe, she said, feel it. She's like,
Wow,
yeah,
you had quite an enlightened mom.
yeah, absolutely. She's like, don't yell, don't scream, feel the pain. Where is
Mm.
it? Is it throbbing? Is it sharp? Is it warm? Is it cold? And obviously, in doing that, you take the emotional reaction out of the pain. Now, in theory, that's all
Mhm,
good, and
mhm,
I still use that practice every now and then. Would I
mhm.
slip every now and then if I stub my toe and an occasional blue word comes out, and then I'm like, okay, mom, I got this. I got this. But to that point, well, the long story is that in some cases we know uh, these different practices, but when we're in the thick of things, much like you had said, you're like, okay, I know after meditating for decades that the body is this, that, thoughts are this and that. But then when the doctor says you have cancer, you're like, all that just flies out the window. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
It's like, well, that was cool for the 3 decades that I didn't even understand that, but now it's like, mother of Jesus, what the heck? And so it sounds like you got to a point, though, that obviously, because of the, in regards to your book, to integrate that. Was it a long process to get to that, to regain that level of peace after your diagnosis?
I didn't, the peace wasn't disturbed at any point.
Mm-hmm.
There was just, I didn't feel any different. And it was just like, okay, now I have to deal with something else. Not, getting the stuff together for the travel trailer, but getting the stuff together for the hospital,
Right.
which is quite similar, only you don't take that much. And in the
Hopefully.
hospital, they found that I had a lump in my lung in the staging process. And I thought, ooh, okay, this could be from breast cancer. Now, if this is actually something from the breast cancer, this won't go well. Because if you have lung metastasis, that's it. And so I thought, okay, is there anything left I would like to do? And the idea came up, yes, write a book. So somebody can pick it up again and follow the process. It has my whole email dialogue in it. I'm right now editing and adding a lot so that people really can work with it. It will take a bit longer to be really a good resource. And then, it might be lost sometime, but books have lived for ages and they will be found again. And at some point, somebody will find the path again and can go it again, because it's really cool to be in this state.
I don't know if I'm in the same state, but I definitely feel that awareness or that understanding as well. And there is a piece, and it sounds
Yes,
like we have this
right.
exactly. And it sounds like we have a similar goal in life, and that is, with me, with the podcast and with my meditation, doing that exact thing, helping people find, again, not what I believe to be peace or what my understanding of the world is, but just to help them go inside enough so that they can find it for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Their version, maybe it's a similar version, different version, but whatever it is, it's going to have people waking up and seeing the world in a different way, in a way that works for them and the people around.
Right. And no longer suffer. I think that's the most important point.
Exactly, exactly.
Yes. And
Do
I
you,
have another thing. I really think it would be great. We discussed that amongst us. If there would be a law that everybody applying for a leading position in economy or politics would have seen at least with a self-illusion. And
good luck with that
so
one.
I really would like to guide thought leaders
Mm.
so that they can really spread this. So more people can experience this peace and come to know of it.
And obviously, it's in everybody's best interest to do that. And one of the
Mm,
things that I talk about in teaching people how to meditate is pretty much that same thing. If we all come to that, for want of a better word, enlightened state of being, then there'll be a tremendous shift in the way we live, uh,
right.
from more peaceful coexistence with each other,
Mhm.
with the planet. So it sounds like we're on the same path. Well,
Absolutely. Yeah, and just the first two steps. So the first is seeing through the self-illusion. The second is that the reactivity disappears.
Mm.
That means that if somebody yells at you, yeah, it doesn't feel nice, sure, but it's possible to respond without emotional charge, which usually works much better anyway.
It does.
And so that would help so much. And, each person that's touched by that will pass that on, because automatically they won't yell at somebody else. And this person won't yell at somebody else
Right. Exactly.
or kick their dog or whatever.
Right. Oh, goodness.
Yes, right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that just creates a ripple,
Mm-hmm.
which brings that sense of peace, and it just grows
Mm-hmm.
and grows and grows, which is awesome. I talk about that um, with my meditations, with teaching meditation, is that, I think I gave the example that somebody could say, your mother is a dirty, rotten, blah, 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 blah. And I could either buy right into that, get angry, react, maybe get in a fist fight, maybe a word, or I can just say, that's your perception. That's not my reality. You're welcome to
Mm-hmm.
yours. I'm welcome to mine, and go from there.
Yeah, right. And this not reacting, the Buddha had a beautiful analogy for that. He said, so many people will be able to rest in the shade of this large tree.
Nice.
Yeah, when you think how hot it is in India,
Yeah, I was going to say,
resting in the
for him to
shade
say
is
that,
really worth something.
exactly, exactly. And one of the things I caution people about is that just because we're not reacting doesn't mean that we're turning into robots and that
Right, right,
we're not being feeling less. It's
right.
more determining how we want to feel as opposed to being drawn into a reaction of how to feel.
Yeah,
Consciously
actually,
decide.
at that point, with the me as the actor no longer being present, it's not something that is done by will. It just doesn't come up any longer
Right,
on its own.
right.
Mm.
So it sounds like you are living much more peacefully than you did 25 years ago when you were 25.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, um, there is a phase at the end where everything feels very calm, and then all of a sudden there is like a flashback, and the old restlessness and the resistance comes up again, and it is so painful. I always ask myself, how could I tolerate that ever? And I considered myself a happy person.
Right.
So it was like,
Well,
mm,
yeah. Well, I was actually talking with a good friend of mine last night, and we were talking about that very same thing. I said, she's like, "Have you always been so calm?" I'm like, "Oh God, no, no." When I was in my 20s and in my teens, I was like all about drama. I was all about he did this, she said that. I'm like, "Oh no, I am not the same man." And my mom had a great saying. She's like, "You're not the same person." She's like, "You're not the same person you were 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes
right,
ago, 30 years ago." She's like, you're reborn every second of every day with every thought. And so I carry that with me. But it's interesting because when I do, I've got two podcasts. I've got Zen Commuter and Calmer in Five. And on Calmer in
hmm
Five, it's a little more succinct. But many times I talk about ways I used to think in my, in my 20s and in my teens that wasn't serving, and how we can kind of shift that to be more serving now. But to our point, or to your point, when I think back, when I'm talking about those instances, I'm like, wow, was that really me? Did I really get pissed off about that? Was I really worried about that? And I just look back and I'm like, okay, you needed to have that happen to get you here. So, past, thank you.
exactly. It's just all part. I told my dad, I think I've been a drama queen.
And now you're just in the audience. Look at that. Oh, that's awesome. Absolutely awesome. So where do you go from here after writing the book, and what is your path? You had mentioned that you want to influence thought leaders. Is that something that you want to take a path to, or are you going a different path? What's next for you in
Well,
regards to?
what I've been doing since I passed the gate, as they say, uh, I have been guiding people
Nice,
through the very same process.
nice.
And we have a Facebook group with people who are beyond the fetters, which is very nice. So I think I have created some people to talk to.
Oh, oh, there's a method to your madness.
Yeah, right.
Let me
That
teach
was
you
the
so I can talk.
that was the first thing I realized. There's nobody I can talk to, because I went to my partner and said, "Hey, I don't exist." She said, "Sure you do. I can see you."
That is absolutely hysterical. I get those blank stares every now and then too. It's like, it's okay. For right now, I get it. Awesome. So is that so that takes up much of your days, I would imagine, correct? Oh, I think you're on mute. Can you hear me? Oh, don't tell me I lost you.
All right.
Whew. Whew, that scared
Yes.
me.
No, no, no. Um, yeah, I'm working about 25 hours a week on that.
Wow.
Mhm.
Oh, that's awesome.
Guiding people. I have several groups on Facebook. I work bilingually in German and English.
Nice. I was wondering that. So your book obviously I would imagine is in both German and English, correct? Or is it just English right
It is in English because my dialogue was with an American, and I dreaded translating this dialogue, and I was so right. It's like 2,000 emails. I won't
now? Whoa.
never translate it literally.
Right.
Or some professional has to do it. I won't do that.
Oh yeah, no.
Or I might, after this, write a German book where I just refer to what I wrote, but
A
don't
pamphlet.
quote that much.
Right,
But take
exactly.
them through the process directly, maybe more.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Now, here's a very question, and I was thinking about this. This isn't deep at all. How do you pronounce your name?
Christiane.
Christiana Michelberger, correct?
Yes, right.
Okay, good.
Mhm.
I was thinking Christiana.
So, but I have something for you Zen commuters.
Oh, cool.
So, when they're driving or sitting on a bus or train or riding a bike, be careful when riding a bike though.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is gonna make it dicey.
Yeah. Actually, in the second step in inquiring into desire and ill will, um, bicycling is a great topic because it brings up so much, or road rage.
Oh, wow. Save that for next show.
All right. So when you commute, um, just and even if you don't feel good, that's all right. Just come to your senses. That is my favorite meditation. Come to your senses. What is seen right now? And just notice what is seen and heard and touched. Feel the touch really from the seat, maybe the steering wheel or the handles of the bike
Right.
or the feet on the ground. And notice the thoughts and just let them run. Don't interfere, just allow everything. Everything is all right. Nothing has to be changed.
I love
How do
that.
you feel?
Right.
Just allow that too. And if you're very daring, you might ask the question, who's looking at that right now?
I wonder how many daring people are out there. I don't even know if I've gotten that daring. I remember it was probably about a couple months ago. I do some part-time work for a
Mhm.
nonprofit that provides health insurance to fishing commercial fishermen, and I was on my way to the office and literally stuck in traffic. I get to a point I'm like, oh, but it was a beautiful day, and to your point, I just stopped. I was literally stopped. I'm just like, oh, there's the sun. Like, wow, look at the pavement. Look at the weeds are coming up through the pavement and
Mhm.
everything just
Right,
hit me.
right.
And it's like, I didn't even think about traffic. I was like, in fact, I didn't want it to move. So I was like, no, 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 don't stop this. I love this. I was looking at people next to me and like not staring at them. I'm just like, hey, and just nod. And I didn't get daring enough to say, who's doing the perceiving, but I was just enjoying it nonetheless.
Mhm. Yeah, right. So um, this is something that could be done on the commute very well. And it really calms down too.
Oh, right.
This, we call it direct experience, just seeing what is seen and hearing what is heard. It's just very relaxing because it engages the right hemisphere more.
So
And
there's
it
a
gets,
physiological reason.
right, it gets the person out of thoughts and thinking about what might happen in future and what the other person is going to say they're going to meet and whether they should call them or not. Yes, call them and then forget about it. Just
Right.
tell them you'll be late.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's funny because even though I'm a pretty chill guy, I remember my, just like everybody, I'm like, I saw the traffic. I'm like, ah, man.
Yeah,
And that,
yeah,
to your point, it just fell away. Everything just fell away. I'm like,
right.
I got to that perception. I'm like, I get there when I get there. I'm like,
It's beautiful, isn't it?
it really is. It's like home. And
And hey, life can be always like that.
yeah, exactly. And the cool thing is, for the most part, it pretty much is. But getting back to my point, I'm like, it wasn't when I was in college. It wasn't when I was in high school. But
Right,
uh,
right.
and
Oh no, not to high school. Never back to high school. That was horrible.
don't go back that far, Tom. There's nothing good can happen there. But like I said, it all brought us here, right?
Hmm.
Awesome. Well, how do people follow your journey, whether it be social media, the book, the things
Hmm.
that are going on in your life? How can we stay in touch with you?
So I have a website, findingawakening.com.
Nice.
And also a Facebook page with the same name, Finding Awakening. And also they find a lot of stuff on my profile where I share more private things about my life and mixed in with what I do and teach.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. What a wonderful, wonderful time speaking with you today.
Thank you so much, Tom. It was great. I loved it talking to you.
Absolutely, me too. I'm like, I have never laughed so hard, so long, in a long time. So that's a good thing. And I laugh a lot. Well, we will definitely stay in touch. I look forward to actually reading your book. Where can people pick up your book? From your
Not
website?
yet. It's not yet published.
Oh, it's not yet published.
I decided to do another. I'm going through it right
Editing.
now, and I want to add more resources so that people really can make the journey on their own,
Nice.
totally independent of a guide if necessary, and then also find this cool space.
Nice. So obviously, if we go to your website, we'll be keeping in touch with when that's going to come out, correct?
Right. Yes.
Fantastic. I can't wait. And I'm glad it's in English. I only took one semester of German in college.
Oh, yes.
Ich bin. That's all. That's all I got.
That's already good.
That pretty much says a lot with what we're talking about, right? Awesome. Awesome. What do you got planned for the rest of the day? You going to be working, playing, a little bit of both?
I will write, I will send out 2 letters to each of my lists. I send weekly emails. I usually only publish once a month. Otherwise, it's for 2 web pages, it gets too much for me with my guidings. But I send out weekly emails. So people always get some food. And then I think I'll go for a walk.
Nice, nice. I'm actually going to do that. Well, I've got an involuntary walk. My the exhaust on my car went south, so I've got to bring it to the yeah. I got to bring it to the garage, and then I'm like, you know what? I think I'll walk home. It's a beautiful day.
Yes,
So,
it's beautiful.
indeed. Well, Christiane, thank you so much for your time today. I'll let you know as soon as it's out, so you can share it with your listeners, and I am sure my listeners are going to be very excited to hear our talk. So,
thank you.
You make it a great rest of the day.
Tom, you too. And thank you again for the lovely chat.
Oh,
Bye-bye.
my pleasure. Bye-bye.